Welcome to Czar. So if you watch our channel, you'll know that Kato and myself are the descendants of first and second wave Russian emigres. These are Russians that left Russia in the early 20th century because of the Soviet Communist Revolution of 1917. The Soviet government sought to remanufacture society entirely, to introduce a new Soviet identity, which also included a definitive lean on atheism. Our people, our ancestors, wanted to preserve the Russian Orthodox identity while they lived abroad. They were a political emigration. They were not mostly focused on economic opportunities as modern generations of Russians are that live abroad. Because of this, we were raised in Russian Orthodox parishes where we had parochial schools, usually meeting on a Saturday. And also, for 1 month out of the year, we would be taken to Russian summer camps, youth camps. One of those youth camps is called NORR, the National Association of Russian Explorers. Now, we didn't start about to do a documentary on NORR. It has its own history, which is interesting. But we wanted to give you a perspective of what it was like for us to grow up as kids in these summer camps, where we had a very unique sense of community. We learned to live independently, and we made very good lifelong friends. So it was a difficult time. It was the Cold War, but being next to each other really gave us a wonderful sense of who we were as Russian Americans. So again, not a documentary, just a walkthrough of Camp NORR, located in the Catskills, still operating to this very day and celebrating its 60th anniversary.
So here we are in upstate New York in an area called Ulster Heights Road in Woodburn, New York, which has been known as Camp NORR, Lager NORR. Before Lager NORR, though, it was called Alicana. And Alicana was we're talking about the 60s, it was a bungalow area where a lot of Russians would take a break, get away from the city, and come here and rent a bungalow. Though Alicana came to an end in 1967 when Lager NORR, Camp NORR, decided to purchase it, and they moved from Monticello, New York, to Woodburn, to where we are here. This house was always known as Skidan's house. This was Skidan's bungalow. The Valitsky actually lived here for the longest time, up until Dядя George Zaykok moved in here from Argentina, and he was the main storage here for, I don't know, a good 20, 30 years. Every bungalow had its connection to some family. Like I said, Skidany, Timidisy, Shidlovsky, Timoshenko, and I'm forgetting other names. Well, Karuny also had their bungalow right here. This was called the Big House, Big Yellow House, and they did some extensive work, as I understand, a couple of years ago. They actually took down all the walls and retrofitted inside. They're trying to preserve these bungalows. These bungalows are over, like, I don't know, a good 70, 80 years old. Is that a woodchuck? Woodchuck, woodchuck, what? Interesting. This section over here was where the parents of the Lagerniki would put up their camp up there, put up their tents. And it was called the Tsigansky Tabor. They used to have campfires here, people playing on guitars, accordions, and so on, right? So this was Tsigansky Tabor up to one time where they asked, please don't play any more music. That further over there was the old original football field, the soccer field, soccer field. As kids, in camp, not in camp, up in Alicana, we used to play forts. This was the top right there. We would build small these rock forts, and And there's a medal here. Always was interesting to come up to this medallion, and because it stuck out. I wrote to this address asking about this medallion. They said, "Well, we don't receive such requests anymore." It states the elevation above sea level, right here. It's the official. So people used to relax here. You have to understand. People used to come up from New York, get away from it all, starushki, the old babushkis, the dedushkis. They used to literally like to camp out here. Cars going by was extremely rare because there was no cars going by here before. Right in front of us is the clubhouse. It was just a place with a payphone that we had some sort of connection to the outside world. That is, we were given the right to use a phone. In the clubhouse, there was the ping pong room. Really no need for a clubhouse. But anyway, that's where we played, and we learned to play ping pong, table tennis. This was the basketball court. And all the New Yorkers, like Skidane, like everyone else, used to play hoops over here. And there's no more hoops, anything. They tried to salvage this in some ways, but I guess this is the last reminiscence of the hoops right over here. They used to practice and play here, really. We go further down here. The pool was opened up, was built here, of course, they were always claiming to be the Olympic-size swimming pool. And for us kids, this was great to go to swim. Every day we used to swim, and it was important. After обед, we used to have физкультурные. We would break up to soccer, volleyball, and other тренировочные игры, right, trainings. But at the end of the day, we would come here. Before ужин, we would be swimming in the swimming pool. There was a special name for the swimming pool. I forgot the name of it right now. This is the столовая. This столовая was built, I mean, you have to understand the age of this столовая. This is like 40, 50 years old, and it's still standing. Before the roof, though, we used to have a tent. And I'd show you the inside of the kitchen, but everything's locked up right now. Here's the icona that Dядя Misha Bulev, actually, he was the artist and iconopисец. And he made that icona. So what does NORR stand for? Just want to make sure. NORR stands for Национальная организация русских разведчиков. The other camp that exists is Arur. And we used to be two different rivals per se, but at the same time, we used to love each other because we all grew up together in the same communities. That doorway right there used to be a window. So at the end of the day, like I was saying about the clubhouse, we would play ping pong there, pay phone, call our parents up and just say something to our parents, or they would call us. At that doorway, there used to be a window. And at that window, we used to buy soda. Not Coca-Cola, not Pepsi-Cola. It was White Rock Cola. And I think we used to buy it for 25 cents a can. This area right here, a lot of raspberry bushes. Now, I don't see I don't see any bushes right now, but this is where all the raspberries were growing. We come across this cross right here. And again, for the Крещение России, this cross was erected in 1988 for the celebration of Orthodoxy of Russia. 1000 лет, 1,000 years of baptismal of Russia. And right behind it is the prud, or pond. We would always call it the pond. And in the pond, you find amazing creatures in there that never existed before. For example, there are turtles, there are goldfish, and everyone who had a problem having their aquariums at home, many times they would be emptied out into this pond. So if they're alive, or there's some strange fish, or there's some strange reptile, good chance they were brought over from a home. I definitely left my turtles here. This pond fills up basically the water in the swimming pools, so it's there's no large water bill. The water for the campers and the stolovia comes from the forest part. We have pumps in the forest, in the swamps of the forest. That's where the water comes from. Now we're going down the path to the boys' camp. And this path right here is the darkest spot at nighttime, because if you walk over there, it's visible up there, but this was heavily wooded. And so this rock would, and we didn't have flashlights, we didn't have anything here. We would really literally try to find and to make sure we see the passageway here, that we're on the right road. Gone are the time, so that was right away an indicator. Ah, we're here. That's Zhenski Lager, the Chasovny over there. And the Murskoy Lager was this way. And this is our Kostyor area. Not the original Kostyor. The old Kostyor was by the stream, which is further down below. This is the new Kostyor, the campfire area, every Friday night. Lager Razvetchikov. Celebrating 1982. So here we are. This is the boys' camp. Murskoy Lager. You could see on the left side was a mladший отряд, the young groups. Старший отряд over there. At one time, there were actually more tents because there was actually a lot of. They've managed to somehow downsize. We had two huge tents over here, though, that would have, at one time, they used to have 3 zvinos, 3 groups. And look, someone wrote down graffiti. Of course there's going to be graffiti. 1985. Amazing. Naturally, I haven't been here for quite some time. But we used to have rocks lined up here and lined up over here. I see the rocks standing over here on the side. And as a nakazanie, as a punishment, if we were speaking English, we would be punished by painting with limestone these rocks, which were all lined here. And this was when we have to get ready for morning exercise, we would all have to line up here. And this is where we would do our morning exercises. On our side, of course, this is where the machta is. This is where we would raise our flags. Initially, there were only 2 flags. It was the Russian and American flags. Later on, they added the Andreevsky flag. It's amazing how quiet it is here. But picture in the summertime, we would have pillow fights, we would have, flashki, and this was always a battleground. And a battleground between the Murskoy and Zhensky Lager, right here. There was mud baths here. Our next door neighbor used to be the farmer. And so the farmer would actually let his cattle walk around, roam around here. And so you had the mud pies everywhere. Also, as in the Kazanya, especially the first week of camp, if you got punished for something, again, speaking English, for example, we would have to collect those mud pies. There are some photos of a chasovny here. The first initial chasovny was right in front of the machta. And Отец Серафим Slobodskoy used to be our priest right here, and he served the first few years, up until Отец Alexei Okhotin came in. So as you can see, logs, campfire. This is where we did our torchki, where we would sing traditional Russian songs, folk songs, war songs, everything. And we would come up with these small little comedy skits. We did some crazy stuff though those years. And how we would write these skits, it's hard to imagine. Some of us would read Reader's Digest from our parents, right, from their coffee tables, and capture an interesting, not a bad joke. And we would play those out. Женский лагерь. This is начальство. Старший отряд, the older groups, and the younger groups here on the side. Initially, these platforms did not exist in the beginning. The children would be walking barefooted on the ground, but the problem was every time it rained, you could imagine the mud was here. So naturally, the idea was to build these platforms. And for some odd reason, I remember his name as Dядя Женя Krivtsov. He was an architect, designer. He designed initially these platforms. And they used to stand on pyramids. So they would build the pyramids first out of cement and build a frame around it. And that's how it used to be. He really helped out a lot. This is somewhat new. Женский умывальник, женский туалет. There is no electricity here. I could see some lights there, but those are not lights. I guess they're just jokingly putting them up. This is a soccer field. And there's a goalpost supposed to be over there. And there's supposed to be one over there. I don't know what happened to it. But there's markers over here. You can see that's the border of the football field, soccer field. We didn't play football. We really didn't play football here. We only played soccer. This was always a secondary volleyball field, which was never really used. And that pole is up amazingly because there was another pole here. They chopped it down or died, but I don't know, whatever. It rotted away. That was meant to climb up. We were meant to climb up ropes, which never happened. So here we come to the chasovnya, the chapel. It used to be a tent by, as I mentioned, it used to be standing in front of the flag area. And this was they put this project together around 1974-75. Asorgin, where Dядя Misha Asorgin did the iconostas inside. And nobody, probably hardly anybody would know the history of this bell here. This came from Nyack. This came from Отец Серафим Slobodskoy. I don't know where the other, they might have rotted away or whatever. But this bell is from Nyack, from the Nyack church from the 60s. And it's good to see that it still survives. I'm sure it's been changed or they put a big nut here. But this is from Nyack. Naturally, this gets covered. For the longest time, they tried to plant grape vines here. So they would grow. And they actually would try to grow, but they never caught on. I can't open this, and no need to it, but it's a beautiful iconostas inside. Prestol. that again, people like Dede Misha Asorgin and Tsitsanyoka Asorgina they did the writing of the icons inside. These bushes have been either trimmed down or they took down the old ones and planted new ones. This is where you have a Super 8 movie of your father playing volleyball. It's right here. Always people playing volleyball here. Always. 2-on-2, 4-on-4, 6-on-6, doesn't matter. Any age. The basketball court came in the late 90s, early 2000s. This was very heavily involved with physical education here. We had a jumping area here. We would put up a pole and jump over the pole. Same thing over here. There used to be a pole vault in a sense over here somewhere. This was a garden here as well. We would actually grow our own vegetables in a long time ago. We're talking about early 70s. Ivan Ilyich was responsible for this, and Fidyai. Fidyai was also involved with this garden right over here. But that didn't work out because they had to come out here before camp would start to plant the garden. And it was very difficult for them to do it. Another thing that I'm reminding, looking this way, Lager NORR used to have a picnic. So the month or 2 months before camp would start, they would have fundraising, and they would put out the grills that Dede Misha Valitsky put together. Dede Misha Valitsky, bless his soul, Dede Misha Valitsky was also very active with camp. And anything that needed to do any work with metal, that was his profession. He was a metal guy. And so he made these barbecue grills for camp to use. So looking over there, that's where they would be. And we would have camp picnics here. They tried to do camp picnics in September, but it didn't work out. So anyway, no matter where you look here, there's history. And there's interesting moments that we could recall. Even spiritual, even spiritual. I remember there was one year, probably around 76, 77, 78, somewhere there, where we looked up on the sky. Someone died. Someone died. And if someone remembers this, put it in the comments below. There was like a vision of an angel in the clouds. And who was that? So, like I said, there was a beautiful memories here, no matter where you go. And you look and walking here and marching. Yeah, Camp NORR was known for marching. This was gravel before. And the thump, walking and marching to Stolovaya would make such a sound. And of course, we used to sing too. And the girls would sing, the boys would sing, and at times we would have a competition who could sing the loudest. Naturally, boys would sing loudest. Leaving Stolovaya, we would march down. And how the Stolovaya worked, this is also an interesting point. All the Starsze Звено were, that is the older groups, right? The older Звено would be scheduled to do the serving, would be scheduled to do the cleaning of the dishes. There was no such thing as paper stuff, no styrofoam. So this was the dishwasher room here on the side. All the dishes will be collected, be placed here. And that's our dishwasher room. It still exists after all these years. A little bit old. Everything's locked up. And nobody wanted to do the pots. The pots were done in the back. So nobody wanted to do the pot cleaning. But we had no choice. We had to do it. Yeah. Memories. Wonderful memories, actually. Sure, there are some people who had a hard feeling against camp. They, there could have been kids who picked that, and not rightfully so. But we're all from New York. Actually, we also had people flying from France to attend this camp. We used to call him Frenchie. And Frenchie would bring in his condensed milk. And we thought that was very strange. He didn't fit in with the picture. Yeah, they were outsiders. Right here, again, another memory. Camp we used to start before Independence Day, most of the time. So my father would do the shopping for firecrackers, fireworks, and he would put up a display all over here when fireworks did not cost an arm and a leg. So this is where the display would be at, and we would be sitting all at the soccer field right there, celebrating the birth of America. So that's our connection to the Russian-American side. To save the culture, save the traditions. We went to church, we stood in church, we had Russian classes, we had the law of God taught to us, we would learn to sing Russian songs. We definitely were not allowed to speak among ourselves in English, though we did. And if we did get caught, there was a group also called Asli, the donkeys. So we would be marching around camp, not all day, but for maybe a half hour here or there, and we would sing "Мы ослы говорили по-английски." We are donkeys. We've been speaking in English. This is again wonderful memories. Hanging out, running away from camp. If we knew someone here in the bungalows, we would come in here and grab a couple of candies or whatever, chocolates or cookies. It was fun to come to camp, and that's why I'm here, recording the memories of Camp NORR, Ulster Heights Road, Woodburn, New York. Back to you, Yoda.
Well, thank you, Kato, for taking us on a very interesting journey. I couldn't help but think about, contrast that with my own experiences in Erur, which I was a part of growing up. And as you correctly said, yes, our organizations were in some senses competitors, but on the other hand, we were basically doing the same thing. I mean, we had our differences in style and approaches, but many of the things that I see there, it was a unisex camp where you had the guys and the girls together, unlike in, let's say, the American Boy Scouts or something, right?
The
You
boys
had
and
an
the girls, right?
right. So that was interesting. Everybody lived together in tents. They learned how communal living, right? You learned responsibility, okay? And of course, you were out there with nature. You lived a simpler life. You didn't have the amenities of home, right? So, you had to go somewhere to make a phone call, for example. We had the same thing. We had a house by the beach where we would go to make calls, right?
Right.
So I'm noticing very similar things here. And of course, whenever we would get together, NORR, Erur, yeah, it was kind of like we were two different sports teams. We were playing the same sport. Right?
Absolutely.
We were playing the same sport, and we have very many similar experiences. Even a lot of songs, by the way, we have in common as well, right?
Sure.
And certain elements of the uniform. I mean, of course, the organizations also have common roots in many ways, but it's just very interesting to compare. And I think what the key takeaway was how critical it was for us to have that 1 month back then in this environment where we were discouraged from speaking English, punished explicitly,
Definitely.
because it's like you're going to be speaking English anyway in school. When you enter the workforce, you're going to speak English anyway there.
Anyway.
You're speaking English 80% or 90% of the time. Can you
Right.
please reserve this one little window to remember that you're Russian? And let's remember too, back then, we didn't have any connection with Russia until the 90s, basically, right? We couldn't. It was very difficult to go back and forth. So this was our unique opportunity to create a Russian experience, in the United States, where we had the ability to have these camps. Which, by the way, organizations, which also, even as you told me, participated in local life. Like there was a parade, for example, that NORR would be a part of in
Sure.
Ellenville.
Locally, we would be involved with the local parade. Absolutely.
Right, and Ariud also would show up at various events. So we were respectful of where we, the country that we're in, and at the same time, we really strove to preserve our unique Russian Orthodox identity.
Absolutely. Rightfully said, Yuda. Exactly. I have wonderful memories. I made a lot of friends. I think a lot of us made a lot of friends. Василий Федорович Жуков, вечная память, царство ему небесное, is the organizer, was a person, was the footstep into making this Camp NORR work in America. Born in Bulgaria, attended Camp NORR in Morocco, and furthermore, he brought it to America and established it first in Monticello, and then we moved into Woodburn. So that's the history behind there. I'm proud to say that there are families who continue on with the growth of NORR to this day. Stepanove, I would say also Timidice, who have been instrumental in continuing on these footsteps. Different times right now, different times, different issues. If you think about it, we were living in a Cold War .1 back then. Now it's almost like a Cold War .2. But it was great. And Yuda, I appreciate the moment that we actually spent the time showing this history, saving it, trying to preserve it, and share with everyone.
Absolutely agreed. And again, hopefully we'll be able to do this in Ariud and other Russian youth organizations that still exist here to this day in the United States.
And that don't exist, have existed. There's a lot we'll be talking about. And of course, I can't wait to do the Ariud visit as well. And maybe we'll do something in this year, maybe still on the question mark, or pretty soon.
So thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more about Russian youth organizations in the United States. And we'll see you at our next episode of Russar.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with others.